Hi, folks. This is the Fighting Nerd and his co-host, Jolly Roger. You're going to have to take my word for that, though, because I'm not actually filming myself today. I got my Icon stand-in, so you'll have to take Jolly's word and my word that we're here. What we're going to be doing today is talking about the swords used on the show Shadowhunters. Yes, I'm a 49-year-old man that watches a show intended for teeny boppers and 20-somethings. But it has hot chicks wielding swords. That's enough for any nerd to watch. A quick rundown on the Shadowhunters for those who may not be familiar with the books or the movies. It is about a show, it is about a group of people, a race called Nephilim or Shadowhunters, and they are half angels that defend the human race against demons and get into a lot of interpersonal and political stuff in the process. They use a lot of edged weapons, particularly what they call seraph blades, which are magical blades endowed with angelic powers and made by a group of warrior monks called the Iron Sisters. And the designs they have on this show are kind of funky. Some of them are kind of stupid, and some of them are okay-ish. So that's what we're going to look at. These fantasy blades are from a realistic standpoint of their use in combat. So, they're a fantasy show, and I know that a lot of people are going to say, well, they're magical blades and all this. But let's just have a look at them as a design, because they're being used by a bunch of professional badasses, right? You'd think they'd be particular about their blades. This is a blade from the first season. All of the blades from the first season looked like this, and they all sucked. I'm not going to talk about them a lot. They look like glow sticks that you buy a kid to use with his Halloween costume. Not really worth talking about much. This is the mortal sword, and this is probably the most important sword in Shadowhunter mythos. It is one of the mortal instruments for which the original series of books was made, and oh, by the way, a theatrical film was made about this as well. This design is not good. It's kind of silly, actually. You can see I've got some things highlighted on the photograph there. It has this really big ricasso for some reason, and it's got a fuller in the ricasso. A fuller, not a blood groove. I'll explain what a fuller is in a future video. Right? And it's got these protrusions on the handguard that would jab the crap out of the forearms and prevent you from using this sword effectively as a weapon. A really stupid design, probably made by a prop master or some sort of artisan that has never really held a sword in his life. Frankly, it defies common sense. All you'd have to do is pick it up if you didn't know anything about swords and realize this could not be used, because this thing the handguard would be constantly in your way and tearing up your forearms. Not the best design in the world, even for a fantasy sword. This seems to be the most common sword design seen on the show. It's seen a lot. And it's got this cool looking recurve, and then it's got another recurve. But I'm not sure that the recurves would help it cut anything, because it doesn't look like the recurve is at the point of percussion. It looks like the point of percussion is in the bend, and really wouldn't help it cut more effectively at all. Also, there's no handguard, which means if you parry or block another person's blade as it comes in, there's a really good chance it's going to slide down your blade and take out your fingers. Not a good thing to happen when you're fighting with swords. Typically, when you see a sword without a handguard, it means it was intended to be used with a shield or another weapon that has more hand protection on it. And I've never seen the Shadowhunters use shields. But again, I realize that they're going for aesthetics, and it's really cool. But the Shadowhunters are supposed to be a bunch of professional badasses. They're a warrior race. You'd think they'd be really particular about the blades that they use. Also, if you look at this thing, it would be really hard to draw out of a sheath quickly because of all those curves. There would just be a lot of points where it would be friction and it would stick. And it would be equally hard to resheath quickly. But then again, you never see them draw blades. They just automatically have them in their hand whenever they need them, it seems to in the show. So that is what it is. Now, a closer look at this, it looks like this thing has a really pronounced ricasso too, a really long ricasso, which I assume is for parrying and blocking without damaging the blade. But these things are supposed to be made out of steel called adamite, and you shouldn't really have to worry about edge damage. And again, even with that ricasso, the ricasso is so close to the hand from it appears. Like, of course, I've never handled any of these things. It looks like there's a really good chance of the blade either missing the ricasso altogether and he just hits your fingers directly, or it slides off the ricasso and takes out the fingers. Like I said, not a good thing to happen. You know, they're a cool looking blade and they're going for aesthetics, I understand that. But for a warrior race, you would think they would have better designs of their blades. Now, this one is probably the strongest design I've seen on the show. This is being wielded by the aforementioned Iron Sisters. It's a nice two-handed design. It looks like the recurve is designed so it will aid in cutting and chopping. It looks like that recurve is what is going to bite into the target when it's used. But again, no appreciable handguard. Kind of like a kitchen knife or a Kyber knife. There's a little bit of the blade that overlaps the grip. So there's a little bit of protection of the hand, but not much. This is obviously a two-handed design, and it looks like it is a balance for two-handed design. I think this is probably the best sword design I've seen on the show. And this is also one that you don't see very often, probably because it's a two-handed design, and the way they have them fight isn't really fighting with swords. They're using hand-to-hand techniques and occasionally using the sword. If you watch the show, I'm not going to get in. I'm not expert enough really to comment on the way they're used, but I do think that if they would get somebody like, say, Doug Marcaida or Matt Easton to come in and teach the people actually how to use blades. I mean, they do a lot of fancy kicks and things like that, and if you're using edged weapons and you throw your foot out there, somebody's going to chop it off. But that's another video, and as I said, I'm really not qualified to say on the martial arts aspects of things. This one is kind of interesting. But again, I'm not exactly sure what they were intending to do with this. It looks kind of scimitar-ish. It has a handguard. I'll give them points for that. But it's a short blade on a really long handle, and I guess they're intending that maybe it could be used like a hand-and-a-half sword, where you could use it one- or two-handed. But it looks awfully blade-heavy to be used one-handed. And it looks almost like an axe. The blade is so broad that you could almost call this an axe. But it's probably functional because it does have that really long handle, so you can use it two-handed and keep that heavy blade under control, and you wouldn't have too much recovery problems with it. But again, it's all designed to be aesthetically pleasing and look really cool. But not something that I think anybody that knew about swords would really want to use. And it's unclear if that false edge is sharpened or not. Another interesting thing about this is that he seems to be cleaning it in some way. Now again, these things are supposed to be made of adamite metal, and presumably you really wouldn't have to worry about rust. So other than making it nice and shiny before he gets demon gore all over it, I'm not exactly sure why he would be polishing it. Now, there was reasons to show this in the show because he was being kind of persecuted by his Shadowhunter boss and whatnot. But the whole idea of polishing that kind of a blade, a seraph blade made by the Iron Sisters, seems kind of silly to me, unless it had just been brought back by somebody and needed cleaned off. But it doesn't seem to be dripping with demon gore. So, yeah. And also, I don't know if it's just like a camera blur or there's something in the background, but it looks like it has some sort of protrusion on the pommel, which if that is a protrusion, that would be really problematic because you'd be hitting yourself with it constantly. So again, you could use it, but they could get somebody in there to help them design blades that are a bit more practical. anyway, that's about it. I'm going to keep it short for once. I understand that these are fantasy blades, but there are fantasy blades like Lord of the Rings, where those swords and knives were actually pretty good when it comes to functionality, except for some of the elven blades. So anyway, this is kind of a crossover of nerd and fighting, nerdy stuff and fighting stuff this time. If you like it, subscribe, hit that like button, or upvote if we're on VidMe, and I hope you did like it. We'll be doing, I'm going to be doing a knifey video the next time. Probably I'll be doing an actual knife review, and then I will do nerdy stuff. I'm going to try to alternate between the nerdy stuff and the fighting stuff and the knifey stuff. So that's about it. As I said, like, subscribe, and I will see you later.